A former Baltimore Ravens defensive lineman went off on the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, one in a good way and one in a bad way. We talk about what he said and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here today on this midweek edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here on Locked On Ravens. So if you want some daily Ravens coverage, we've got you covered over here. We have a jam-packed show today. Canty, former Ravens defensive lineman, he went off on the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, one in a good way and one in a bad way. So we'll talk about which is which. We'll also dive into Canty's comments and how true they are. Then in the second part of the show, we'll do a little bit of a Lamar Jackson injury update analysis, as we obviously got word about an update from Brian Wacker of the Baltimore Sun about what a timeline could look like for Lamar. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about if the Ravens can right the ship. Want to tell everyone today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Here with me, it is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail of Missile Training and MissileTraining.com, as well as the Locked On Ravens squad show. And Q, last time we spoke, it was directly after the Kansas City game. It was right after heat of the moment. Obviously, we all had very strong things to say about the team. I don't think our mindsets have really changed from the Ravens are in a very bad spot right now and need to right the ship, which we'll get to. But how are you feeling after a couple of days off and kind of analyzing everything that's happened so far with this team? And I think this is the perfect encapsulation of wake me up when September ends. It's October 1st right now. That September month for the Ravens was just absolutely awful for the NFL season in 2025.
I am in a mood right now where I looked at the tape. I had to check myself, recheck others that I trust and like what I see when they put up their analysis. And it is totally befuddling to me because it seems like each week, as opposed to getting better and fixed, the state of affairs for the Ravens continually spirals out of control. And I think it has reached its zenith with the display that we saw against the Kansas City Chiefs.
You look at this Ravens team and what they have to offer, at least on paper, you're like, wow, that's a great team. But then you look at them and how they've actually played. Well, that is the product they're putting forward on the field. Yes, guys are injured. I'm not using that as an excuse because I don't use that as an excuse for any team. Yes, they add context, but every team deals with injuries. We've seen so many injuries this year. It's been extremely unfortunate. We'll obviously get to Lamar Jackson and his situation a little bit in the second part of the show. I did a whole instant reaction after that update from Brian Wacker came out, so that was a lot of detail. And obviously, I'm intrigued, Q, to hear what you have to say about the situation on Lamar. But Canty, former Ravens defensive lineman, he was with the team, and he had a couple of interesting comments about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Now, he went off on the Ravens and Lamar. He went off on the Ravens in a bad way and Lamar Jackson in a good way. So I want to talk about what he said about the Ravens first. He was on First Take and he was asked, Super Bowl, Ravens, what are the hopes? What's kind of the plan here? And Canty said, quote, "It's a wrap for the Baltimore Ravens. This reminds me of the 2015 season where the Ravens led the league with guys on IR. This organization, it seems to happen to them every 10 years. In 2005, they were 6-10, double-digit loss year," which, again, shout out, Canty did his research on that one. Like, hey, you got to pull out from 2005 and 2015, those years. I don't want 2025 to go the way of how those 2 years went for the Ravens in 2005 and 2015. But what is your confidence level based off what you've seen here? Look, they can't win games continuing to play how they've played. We all know that. But it's not just about the play on the field. You and I have talked about it. The vibes seem off. everyone seems dejected. The messaging from whether it's the head coach or some of the players has been weird. It just feels like there's so much other stuff going on. And really the second straight year where we're seeing, I don't want to call it drama this season, but just weirdness in the locker room and in the organization that for years has been such a rare thing to think, or at least to see come to the surface for the Ravens over the course of their franchise history.
The 2015 season, like that wasn't as talented of a group as this ball club. The way in which coaches, head coaches, staffs gel is there's a certain level of accountability, certain level of consistency. There is a listening. There is I know that I am a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. What I see with John Harbaugh's club, Eric DeCosta's club, it's almost as if they're resting on their laurels. And yeah, like we got a generationally talented player, Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying that they have to show up and magically win, but it feels like that. It feels like they're not addressing a Daniel Fa'alele problem. It feels like it is, hey, he was a Pro Bowler. Don't you worry about that, brother. It feels like, well, we got Malaki Starks. I mean, the safety issues are all in the rearview mirror. It wasn't no big deal. It feels like, well, those coordinators that we had, those assistant coaches on the defensive side of the ball, they're really good, but we're the Ravens, and don't even worry about it. And then you look at the product on the field, it's like, wait a minute, what you guys are saying and what you guys are doing are two different things. Oh, we work really hard. We're hard workers. Oh, yeah. Oh, we get value picks. Meanwhile, you got like guys that are just like, oh, okay, we need some studs on offense. We need some studs on defense. Skip the compensation and the compensatory picks. And, oh, we're going to like figure this one out. Man, all of it. There is something wrong with a team that is supposed to be on paper Super Bowl caliber, Super Bowl or bust. Something is wrong when you look at the body of work of getting to the playoffs and not finishing. When you see other teams doing just that, finishing, getting into the playoffs and winning. You're being outcoached. You're being outdrafted. You're being out salary capped. You're being outplayed on the field. And you have a fan base left in disarray.
The big thing is that, we're 4 weeks into the season, so you can say, yes, it's early enough where they can bring it back, right? Like technically, yes, that's the answer. And you can say that is true. But we're just seeing so many other things going on right now. And we'll certainly get again to Lamar right now with what Chris Canty had to say. And Chris Canty was very complimentary of Lamar Jackson. He went off. He had a mic drop. He said, quote, Lamar Jackson, since he's become the full-time starter, has played at an MVP level every single year. Lamar Jackson is the best regular season QB since prime Peyton Manning. He's that good. When he starts and finishes the season, the Baltimore Ravens average 12 wins. The fact that they haven't gotten to a Super Bowl with him at the height of his powers is a travesty. And that a boom, like the boom mic drop moment from Chris Canty there. So you're looking at how the Ravens have been injured this season, Q. We see it. Roquan, Marlon, Lamar. I'd have to, maybe it's even better to just say who's healthy at this point. Maybe that's a shorter list than who's not healthy for the Ravens at this point, because it's a lot of guys who were injured. but you had 3 opportunities, 3 golden ones to win a Super Bowl with Lamar so far, 2019, 2023, and 2024. The last 2 seasons, the Ravens were almost historically healthy in terms of key starters not going out and only maybe having guys miss a week or 2 or 2 to 3 weeks. But seasons like this can happen any given time, which is why those missed opportunities sting so much, because regardless of how good your team looks on paper, regardless of, who the favorites are and everyone's talking about you and whatnot, injuries can derail you and you have to take advantage of your opportunities. And the Ravens have not in 3 big ones that they've had so far. And Chris Canty's right. Like Lamar Jackson at the height of his powers, there's a lot at play in why they haven't gotten to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of blame to go around and a lot of people, but it is definitely a travesty.
So it's interesting too, because you talk about Peyton Manning and his at the height of his powers, and I was a part of his one of his playoff teams that got crushed on the road against the Jets, and the game as it got better for him, they had players around him offensively and defensively to complement strongly his superpowers. Again, what Chris Canty is saying, this is the ultimate team sport. And so when you do have that generational talented player, you do want to put guys in position around that said player to maximize your efforts every single time you step out there on the football field. I know Bob Sanders was that guy that really was the enforcer on the defense in Peyton Manning's years when they won their first Super Bowl. He was just that much of a difference maker. You just keep going on and seeing what they did offensive line wise to have such a strong offensive line to help Lamar to help out Peyton Manning. But when you look at Lamar, when you look at the way this team is put together on paper, like it's one thing. Like I get like this, like, oh my gosh, I'm sensitively aware to not put the criticism there. But when you look at the tape, I'm like, no, I'm not criticizing just randomly. Look at the tape, and look at the tape when you see those other teams, the Eagles, the way in which the Andy Reid dynasty of the Kansas City Chiefs are every year in year out. They're in the AFC Championship game. Look at those juggernaut type teams. That's the measuring stick. So I'm with Chris Canty, and I'm here local. I'm seeing it in practices, and those are the measuring sticks. Like, okay, then who's the persons that we're looking at? And it starts at the top. John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about, and again, we can go year by year. We can look at how the rosters have been placed around Lamar over the course of his career. There was the wide receiver conversations for years. Obviously, offensive line has been a conversation, even defensively, right? The Ravens invest a lot of money in that secondary and a lot of capital in that secondary. But what's their biggest need right now? Definitely pass rush, and they've had opportunities to get guys. And yeah, they invested a 2nd-round pick in Mike Green and a 1st-round pick in Lafayette. But we're talking about signing that big guy, signing or trading for. I know Micah Parsons was a big topic of conversation. That guy at some of these other positions. So coming up in the second part of the show, we'll wrap up with what Chris Canty had to say, because it does relate to Lamar Jackson's injury situation, and we'll dive into the latest on Lamar and the other injured Ravens. So stay tuned. A lot coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat, all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still here with you talking Ravens football. We again here on Locked On Ravens are 5 days a week of Ravens coverage and content. Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time is the regular show, but we have instant reactions episodes. We've been doing a lot of those lately, and unfortunately not for great topics. I wish we were talking about big trades or signings or fun extensions, but unfortunately it's been injuries. But still, it's fun to get on there and kind of dive into everything that's going on. We got the watch-alongs, instant reactions, plus Locked On Ravens Squad show, and Q is on that. If you can't get enough of us, we'll be on there tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be diving into everything Ravens on there with us two and Sam and Joku. So hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form. Chris Canty just wrapping up what he had to say because it ties into the Lamar Jackson injury and the update that we got on Tuesday from Brian Wacker. He said, quote, Chris Canty said, what makes it even worse is what's going on around the AFC. Bengals, Joe Burrow out for what looks like the season. The Chiefs don't look like the Chiefs of old. Well, last week they certainly did, but that's not here nor there. You see, Chris Canty goes, it feels like there was an opportunity to rise up. But considering Lamar's likely not going to play in week 5, considering they have a week 7 bye, he likely won't play in week 6 against the Rams. You could be looking at 1-5 going into week 8. And if that's the case, then the season is a wrap. They're not competing for a division title. They're not making the postseason. So Chris Canty essentially burying the Ravens in that case. He essentially is burying the Ravens even in this case based off of how they've looked. We got the update from Brian Wacker saying that Lamar Jackson is, yes, unlikely to play in that Houston Texans game in week 5. And that timeline could be maybe 2 to 3 weeks, which would put him back right around after the bye. Brian notes that hamstring injuries typically keep a player out for 2 to 4 weeks. So Q, what's kind of your analysis? Obviously, this is just a report from Brian, but obviously it kind of lines up with comments we got from Ian Rappaport about some of the other Ravens soft tissue injuries, all those being multi-week things. Don Harbaugh talking about Lamar could not go back in the game if he needed to on Monday. This Lamar situation, I mean, they are staring 1-5 in the face. It is a dire situation right now if you have to rely on Cooper Rush for a couple of games, considering Lamar masks a lot of weakness already on that offense when it comes down to it.
Interesting, because from the larger picture of Lamar Jackson and the injury and the other soft tissue injuries, it again brings into focus the training and the balance of whether or not, the intensity in which you have your guys play during the week of practice, work out during the week or in season, and what that looks like. And how do you balance that with recovery? And they do have a lot of metrics that they utilize, but boy, I'm curious as to those metrics and how they are working, and yet you still have these said injuries. That to me is a head scratcher. I know there are ways that you have to hold yourself accountable with the style of training to excite the body in the correct way when you go what is called max neuro drive. Until that is addressed, you're going to have these breakdowns that occur no matter what the metrics say.
When you talk about hamstring injuries in general, obviously there are different severities, different types, and obviously it is different by position, as you and I have talked about so many times when it comes down to players about who they are as a player, how much do they need certain movements or push-offs or acceleration or whatnot. You obviously don't want to rush this for Lamar Jackson. You don't want to rush it for any of these guys, Marlon, Roquan, etc. But for Lamar in particular, when you kind of hear this 2 to 3 week timeline and the bye is coming up and it's unlikely, and you kind of hear that he's walking slowly to the locker room, limping on the team bus, like clearly something is off here. I wouldn't want to risk this if I'm the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. I look, even if the season is hanging by a thread, I'd rather Lamar sit out and wait till he's 100% or as close to it as he can get. We've had that conversation, as close to it as he can get. But it still is not great because you're right. I think you're right. Chris Canty's right. Everybody's right. The Ravens need to be better, and it's hard for them to do that without their star quarterback. Is this something that Lamar does need to take really, really slowly as he kind of works back from it? Because hamstrings, much like a couple other muscle groups on that leg, they're no joke.
Well, I will say this again, like if you're doing some good soft tissue work, there's the myofascial release protocols that you can do. There's some frequency specific microcurrent, aka FSM work that you can do. There's obviously supplements that you can take outside of the allopathic method of going down the road of anti-inflammatories. And there's some strategic movement rehab to stimulate the fibers correctly. If you can combine all that, and I'm sure there are people that are in the building that know how to do some of the I'll just say alternative, non-traditional means. But if you do all that, it can, in fact, speed up the healing process. And of course, there's also the Lamar Jackson. Hey, what are you doing at home? Are you going to sleep? Are you getting your rest? Are you doing those other things? You can get back. Heck, you can do hyperbaric work. You can, again, there's just so much that you can do to get yourself back. It depends upon the patient, and it also depends upon the healing practitioner. Both have to work together strategically, and both have to have an aggressive mindset to want to heal up. If that is the case, that's where, Lamar can get back, do his thing, and be ready to go.
It's interesting because it's not just Lamar Jackson, obviously. There are a lot of other guys that are dealing with some injuries as well. So we'll talk about those, as well as who will be replacing Lamar Jackson in the event he is not able to go and what that means for the Ravens. So stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. For the Ravens and Texans, the Texans actually have overtaken the Ravens on FanDuel in terms of the spread. Texans now are the road favorites in this game. 1.5 here is the number for the Texans, -1.5 for Houston. Baltimore plus 1.5 at home. So you feel like the Ravens can, I guess at this point, pull off the home upset over the Texans. FanDuel is the place to be. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. And the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those alone saved me money every month, and I am big on savings, so that really, really helped me out. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, Qadry Ismail. We're still rocking out with you here on this Wednesday edition of the show. Ravens turning the page, facing the Houston Texans, and they might have to do it without their star quarterback in Lamar Jackson. We got the report from Brian Wacker that he is unlikely to play in week number 5. And Q, if that's the case, Cooper Rush will be running out of that tunnel on Sunday against the Houston defense that is actually very good. I read this out on the Instant Reaction show that we did when the news was first released. Brian put it in his article. The Texans defense right now is number 1 in the NFL in points per game allowed, 12.8. 5th in the league in total yards per game allowed, 280, and 7th in passing yards per game allowed at 178.3. They're also coming off that 26-0 win over the Titans. Now, Lamar Jackson, again, I talked about it. He masks things and he does things that no other quarterback can do. And that, I believe, is part of what makes him so good. He can mask for weaknesses on the offensive line. You know, an offensive lineman gets beat really badly, Lamar can just escape over here, make something happen, make something crazy. Cooper Rush can't do that the way that Lamar Jackson can. And we saw that in the preseason where Cooper Rush could not do that the way Lamar Jackson could. Defenses also aren't going to be as afraid of the Ravens offense without Lamar Jackson out there. It's just a fact, right? You can run Derrick Henry. I think that should be the game plan if Cooper's out there, but you miss some of the misdirection stuff and options and all of the stuff that makes Lamar Jackson, just the gravity of him, so dangerous to defenses. You lose all of that with Cooper Rush on the field. Now, the Ravens paid Cooper $12 million to be the backup for 2 seasons in Baltimore. It's going to be a little different offensively than what Lamar Jackson and that offense would look like. But, you know, at the same time, Cooper has filled in for Dak Prescott, for example, and had moments where he kept the Cowboys season afloat. For example, in 2022, he ended up doing a pretty good job. He filled in for Dak and ended up making something happen, which at that point they really needed. So, I mean, look, what's your confidence level in Cooper Rush going out there and leading the Ravens to 1, maybe 2, maybe more wins if he has to in the absence of Lamar, because it's going to look a little different out there?
Oh, boy. Good luck. Houston's defensive front, I mean, they look formidable. So regardless if it is Cooper Rush or Lamar Jackson being out there, the bottom line, your offensive line is just not good. I don't know what else to say. Like, if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs tape, it doesn't really matter the personnel grouping that you have if you can't do some of the basic blocking. And whether it be Roger Rosengarten, whether it be Daniel Falele on the one, literally the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, Steve Spagnuolo was like, I got you. Brings pressure from his right to left, gets over to Daniel Falele's side, and literally Linderbaum is engaged in the blitzing linebacker, hits him. Daniel hits his own guy, Linderbaum, off of the linebacker. Lamar had a running lane. Linebacker takes angle pursuit, gets Lamar down. Another play. Lamar literally is trying to get rid of the pressure, steps up. Daniel Falele whiffs on helping out Roger Rosengarten. And he goes and, his guy makes the tackle. They don't pick up the first down. The decision-making from Lamar to the play calling to the execution of the offense from an offensive line standpoint is just subpar. That being said, you add in a Cooper Rush. If I'm Cooper, I'm like, bro, y'all need to realize I'm not Lamar. So we're going to have somebody recognize that while Lamar might be an extended play, I'm not going to be extended play. I'm trying to get rid of this football. I know Tom Munkin is probably like, all right, but you know what? If he has to get to the line and kind of manage the game, meaning like redirect and put himself in a better position, I think that's going to be what is going to help Cooper Rush. But you still, as an offensive line and as an offense, has to execute what is being called, and that's remains to be seen.
Yeah, John Harbaugh very critical of the offensive play calling, both after the game on Sunday and during his media availability on Monday, essentially throwing Todd Monken under the bus in a lot of situations there pretty blatantly. I talked about that on yesterday's show. And, you know, they do need to be better. Like the message of Harbaugh, what he was saying, like, hey, we need to be better with play calls and on third down and running with Derrick Henry. Like, all that was true. It's just the way that Harbaugh was saying that. Now insert Cooper Rush into there, and you really have to play to his strengths because, again, Cooper and Lamar are different in a lot of different ways. Not just that Lamar is better, but, you know, the offense is probably going to look a bit different with him out there. And we've seen what a Lamar Jackson less offense looks like. The Ravens are 4-9 and the Lamar era without him out on the field as a starter. And, some of that is the fact that, Lamar will sit out games like, that 2019 Pittsburgh game. He didn't have to play in week 18. He wasn't hurt. He just didn't play. The Ravens rested their starter. So that's part of it too. But, it's not nearly as high powered, not nearly as explosive. And you say, hey, we'll rely on your defense. Well, do I have news for you about the Ravens defense right now? That is the last thing you want to be relying on right now. And again, you can cover your ears if you want to, because these are not going to be pretty stats. They are last in the league at points allowed, second to last in the league in total yards given up, second to last in the league at first downs given up, second to last in the league at passing yards given up, second to last in the league at rushing touchdowns given up, 27th in the league at rushing yards total, and even conversion rates. They're 20th in the league in the red zone, 24th in third down, 27th on fourth down. So not quite a defense you can rely on in those moments, Q. And they're missing a ton of guys. We know that Marlon, Humphrey, and Roquan Smith are expected to miss a few weeks with their injuries. We don't know the status on Nate Wiggins at the time of this recording. Hopefully he's all right. Hopefully Kyle Van Noy and Travis Jones can come back and play this week for the Ravens. And we know Nnamdi Madubuike is not going to be out there, unfortunately, for the rest of the season. And we don't know if that's even going to impact his career availability, which is a whole scary situation in itself. I mean, this defense right now with all the injuries, and especially, you're going to miss guys like Roquan and Marlon, who, look, haven't played well so far this season, but you are inserting a lot of younger players on that defense and a lot of rookies, something the Ravens generally don't like to do.
I just hope that from that aspect of things that it doesn't get worse. The young players, again, you don't want to overcomplicate things. You want to keep it simple. But Malaki Starks, there were times where he just looked lost. There were times where Mike Green got swallowed up. There were times where a veteran like a Marlon, who's out, but he didn't really look the part. Xavier Worthy, I think, is still running a go route and just keep on running. Good God, man. Buchanan didn't look good. Goodness, Trent Simpson, he's a young player, but he's in his, second year, third year, whatever year he's in.
Third year,
so whatever year he's in, mother of pearl, homeboy got benched again, even after having to put him in, and they put in Jake Hummel. That just goes to show you how bad things are. It's bad. So it's bad. Peebles, all those guys. This is going to be an interesting test of preparation for the coaching staff, game planning, and also helping guys realize what's at stake. And they're going to have to play monumental against a team that is well coached as well, looking to build on their momentum, looking to build on their running attack that had been absent. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like they found a way. Yeah, the Texans are coming. Are you ready?
1-4, you do not want to be there when it comes to the final whistle in week number 5. The Ravens also signed a former Texan, Kenyon Green, to their practice squad. He was a first rounder for them in 2022, was selected one pick actually after the Ravens took Kyle Hamilton in that draft. So I'd take Kyle over Kenyon Green, just in my opinion there. And then they also brought in Eric Kendricks for a visit, veteran linebacker. So they're doing anything not to play Trenton Simpson, it feels like. Bringing in anybody they can to not put Trenton Simpson on the field right now, because it has not been good for him. So the Ravens shuffling around, making some moves, and they need a big game against Houston on Sunday. Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for popping on and hopping in on the way out. Tell people where they can find you and what you're working on. I know you still got a lot going on here.
Yeah, man, it's all about missile training. Missile training is missiletraining.com for all your movement and sports performance needs. When you talk about movement and sports performance needs, we're talking about recovery work. We're talking about the ability to be durable and not break down. No ankles, no hamstrings, no other issues that can cause you to be out. Durability is what we seek. Strength is what we seek. Speed is what we seek. missiletraining.com. Also, you can find me, WJZ, Channel 13. We're doing some great things. I know that Purple Pregame is where we sit back, break it down. Alex Glaze, Grace Grill, and I, we all are breaking down all your pregame Raven needs. And, of course, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and I, we're here for you. we're sitting there letting you know what it is that is going on with the Ravens on a weekly basis. And of course, the squad shows add in Sam and Joko to the mix, and you got a triumvirate of guys talking shop and all things purple.
And just a trio of guys that love speculating. That's what it is. Speculation central on the squad show with Q leading the charge, of course. But no, you can go and check out all of Q's work in the description below. Be sure to go support him and check out what's going on at Missile Training as well as WJZ and, of course, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. We'll be back here tonight on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So be sure you check in, tap in for that. And then, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow with another edition of just the regular Locked On Ravens show. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.